I had an elevator question and an observation from the last chapisode that we discussed. I don't think we actually asked, if we were Vin and Elend, what do we do in this situation to sort of sniff out who the Kandra might be?
Ooh, yeah.
So my question for you, Kite, right now is, what do you do in this situation?
Oh gosh, I need to know more about Kandra before I even have the plan, because I need to know about whether they keep memories. But I wonder if that's knowledge that's common to, if people know about that. Inland, I would hope knows a bit more about it, because he's got the advantage of having been a nobleman who worked with Kandra before, so maybe there's something he knows. Okay, so there's that, because that's one way we could identify who the Kandra is by, like, do you remember this? And see how they work with it. But I feel like that's too simple, because I am feeling like the Kandra would have some sort of knowledge from the bones. It's weird. So I'm stumped with that. Another thing is, I need to know whether a Kandra can absorb. Oh, also, we do need to. Sorry, I'm forgetting that we do have Orasur to ask, and she can tell us that.
That's gonna be my first thing.
Yeah, hello. So yeah, that's what Orasur. I'm sorry. Maybe it is early. So yes, there's that. God, Chinsia, that's a bit dumb. I'm like, I go on about Elend and whatever, like Orasur, Chinsia, Orasur. Okay. Oh my God. So yeah, he would be the first one. So it really depends on what you do, what those answers are. That's the thing. That's what I mean. Like, it depends on those answers.
Right. So yeah, my very first thing would be to say, Orasur, tell me everything you can about Kandra and how you would go about catching one, and tell me what you would do in my situation, essentially. And I would
you have to ask him. You have to ask him specifically, and you would take
and I would take everything he has to say under advisement at the very least. I'm not exactly a betting man, but I would also consider the fact that Elend was very, very surprised at the dog Orasur of it all. Now, Vin was under the impression that she probably isn't the first to have thought of animal Kandra, but given that there was such an emphasis on the rest of the crew don't know about dog Orasur, I would become that pet owner that says, hey, Ham, could you look after my dog for a couple hours, please? And then be like, Orasur, do not give yourself away. Just watch and hang out with Ham for a couple of hours. Tell me if he does anything sneaky. Out of character, if you will.
Because he should also know. He's also been around them as well. So it's not like Orasur is an outsider that doesn't know the characters, doesn't know those people.
Right.
So he would also be able to also figure out what would be a red flag.
Right.
He's colorblind now. But yeah.
That's funny.
Thank you.
But yeah, if you're following or tailing one of them and you see them going around unaliving people or looking into drawers and paperwork that maybe they shouldn't be looking into, that's gonna be some clue that something's amiss. So I would be leaning heavily into Orasur right now.
It's completely, I didn't mention it. Didn't go there. Yeah. You know what? I think it's a fun thing. I was going to say also, so leaning into Orasur as the agent, but I'm thinking of the characters' reactions now. It's like, then do we tell? Okay, so here's us asking, right? Do we tell the people that Orasur is a good boy, a doggy? Like, do we reveal that? Because in your plan, we need him to tail them, right? Or like stay with them. That would lead to some sort of suspicion in any case about him. Like, why are you letting my dog run around with you? So are you just saying,
well, it all depends on how you play it off. It's like, hey, Ellen's got this thing. I have to be his bodyguard for a little while, and I haven't taken the dog for a walk. Can you do that, please? Do me this favor, friend. Obviously, Vin would play it better than me. I don't know. How good of a liar is Vin?
She should be quite a good liar,
I don't know
because
about that.
that's how she survived.
She's good at keeping secrets. I don't know if
Mhm.
we've seen a tendency for lying, though. Well, I mean, there's the My Fair Lady of it, but
And yeah, she is a bad lie. Like, she tries to lie about, like, we like to Calcia. She tries to lie. where she's like, where she's like, okay, fine. And then he's just like, you're gonna come anyway. You're gonna follow me anyway. She's like, yes. So I know what you mean. But
Yeah.
sorry, I interrupted your thoughts on the My Fair Lady of it all.
She was pretending to be a noblewoman, but for some reason in my mind, that seems like an entirely different category than lying.
Yes, that's
the
a
noble
performance.
woman. Yeah, it's a performance. Exactly. It's a persona. It's a different side of herself.
It's a different mode of lying. And yes, it's that you are utilizing a different part of yourself to lie, but like a bold-faced lie, bold-faced lie. That I don't think Vin is very good at.
Yeah. So I would lean into Orosur's knowledge and the novelty of Dog Orosur to try and sniff out Miss Condra.
Come on, did you know you were saying that? Come on, that's really good.
It was not intentional, but yes, it was intentional.
Happy accident.
Happy accident. The other thing I wanted to bring up is there was a lot of emphasis on Demure not looking at Vin. Now, on my initial read through, I had chalked that up to Vin's kind of weird, and there are bones in her room.
Yes, that's what Vin felt.
Yeah. But I have to consider that Demure was very into Kelsier in the last book. He was one of the loyal few that stayed behind because he felt loyal to Kelsier specifically. And I think it wouldn't be unreasonable if the reason he was so awkward around her may be that he is involved in the Church of the Survivor in some way, and maybe he's nervous or something around her. Yeah, so that's a possibility.
Yeah. Okay, I'd get it.
Yeah.
But his suspicion, his weird behavior doesn't make him, like, we did consider it in the previous episode. We did consider whether he was the
I still think he's a contender for who the Condra is, possibly.
Rather him than him, okay?
Yeah, I'd rather him than him. Sorry, Demure.
Yeah. It's just the way it is.
No, look, if it's going to be anyone, if I had to pick anyone in the crew for it to be, I kind of got to go with Clubs.
Okay.
Look, I love how much of Clubs we're getting in this book. We didn't get very much of them in the last book, but look, he's the oldest of the crew, and
had a good run. Oh, he couldn't really run.
Had a good run. Lived longer than a lot of ska under the Lord Ruler.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be Clubs.
If you have to, he's like, listen, you lived long enough, but yeah.
There's still a lot more for everyone else to do.
I hope he's been teaching somebody about like his military skill and whatever, because that's what he's supposed to be. So I hope he's been imparting that knowledge. Probably not onto Spook, but
Yeah. Now, as promised, this chapter will be a blind read through, and I believe it's chapter 19 that is our next planned blind read through, as we were advised to make it so.
You made me so nervous. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, you're like, when you said 19, what have I done? How behind am I? What's happening? And then I'm like, okay, cool. Just thanks for the blast of neuroticism. It's great.
Gotta spread the neuroses around a little bit.
Make it easier for everybody. Right.
Hello and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. For this particular series, I am joined by my wonderful co-host, That Darn Kitty.
Dorkus and I are both going into the story completely new, with almost no knowledge of the story or world.
Each segment, we intend to cover what happens in each new chapter and discuss our experience along the way.
Hold on to your butts, because this is Ascension Unleashed, a blind read-through, and today we will be covering Chapter 12!
Chapter 12!
Okay, good. Again, I'm so happy that you said Chapter 12!
Part 2, Ghosts in the Mist. It wasn't until years later that I became convinced that Alendi was the hero of ages. Hero of ages, the one called Rabzine in Clenium, the Animus... I haven't read this before. The one called Rabzine in Clenium, the Anamnesor Savior. Okay, so Alendi was his assistant for several years.
Mm-hmm.
Rabzine.
Yeah, that's I've got nothing with Rabzine. I'm just like, oh.
Okay, I think Rabzine means savior in Cleny, and the Anamnesor might be savior in Terras?
Maybe, yeah. That would make sense.
Yeah, if we're getting into language. And then, in theory, all of these different cultures could have a savior mythos.
Name for it, yeah.
The Messiah.
Yeah. Anamnesor.
New lore. This
New
is
lore.
interesting. Okay, cool. Shall we continue? A fortress sat in the misty murk of evening. It rested at the bottom of a large depression in the land. The steep-sided, crater-like valley was so wide that even in daylight, Sazed would barely have been able to see the other side. In the oncoming darkness, obscured by mist, the far edge of the massive hole was only a deep shadow. Okay, so this is ominous. What is it? The conventicle of Saron, right?
Yes. Oh gosh, that's even. Is this where they're at? Yeah.
Probably.
Just the conventicle. That word is intimidating to me, but that's probably because of my IQ.
Which I'm sure is very high. That wasn't sarcasm, folks. I was genuinely trying to compliment her. Sazed knew very little about tactics and strategy, though his metal minds held dozens of books on the subjects. He had forgotten their contents in order to create the stored records. What he did know told him that this fortress, the conventicle of Saron, was not very defensible. It relinquished the high ground, and the crater sides would provide an excellent location for siege engines to pelt rocks down at the walls.
Okay.
Interesting. And if I recall correctly, like during the time of the Lord Ruler, he didn't need walls around Kredik Shaw at least.
Yeah.
Because who would bother?
Who would dare? The walls are ideological and social. They are not literal.
It's psychological.
Yeah.
So it's probably the same logic here?
Yeah, that's what I would expect. Or, yeah, like I'm trying to think of like, oh, maybe there's some sort of power that they use. No, either way, I agree.
However, this fortress had not been built to defend against enemy soldiers. It had been built to provide solitude. The crater made it difficult to find, for a slight rise in the land around the crater's lip made it practically invisible until one drew near. No roads or paths marked the way, and travelers would have great trouble getting down the sheer sides. The Inquisitors did not want visitors. Well? Marsh asked. He and Sazed stood on the crater's northern rim before a drop of several hundred feet. Sazed tapped his vision tin mind, drawing forth some of the eyesight he had stored within. Before we go any further, just reading that little bit, I had a very funny image of my mind of Sazed using ferrochemy to make himself light as a feather and have him just like jumping down the crater, floating down. He casts Featherfall on himself.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I get it.
Sazed tapped his vision tin mine, drawing forth some of the eyesight he had stored within it. The edges of his field of view fuzzed, but things directly in front of him seemed to grow much closer. He tapped a little more sight, ignoring the nausea that came from compounding so much of his vision.
I'm just enjoying having a bit more of a POV of Sazed using Ferrokemi. Just really enjoying the part of this magic. Just being in
Yes.
his mind as it happens, what happens, oh, there's nausea, things like that. So we've had the experience of all the mistborning and a little bit of Ferrokemi, but I'm enjoying that. Also, just a reminder, just another note for me is how damn related these powers are. Come on. Tin Mind for eyesight. You can't pretend that they're not really, really linked.
Yeah. There's almost certainly a science to it, right? But that's always the debate between magic and science, right? Magic is just science that we haven't figured out yet, or something to that effect. And then that's the danger, I guess, between hard magic and soft magic systems is if you apply these rules, it can become a science.
Oh, I've got an article to share with you from George R. R. Martin. Well, just a discussion that George R. R. Martin had.
A GURM discussion. I'm so excited.
He basically he doesn't seem to like hard magic systems, but I'm sure you knew that.
I probably did at some point.
Oh well, you can see it in his books. Yeah, he was compared. The writer does compare him to Brandon Sanderson and some other people, and it's part of the delay because now he has to think about magic. So there's some quotes that I must take from there for you. Anyway,
the increased eyesight let him study the conventicle as if he stood before it. He could see each notch in the dark stone walls, flat, broad, imposing. He could discern each bit of rust on the large steel plates that hung bolted onto the outside of the walls. He could see each lichen-encrusted corner and ash-stained ledge. There were no windows. Ominous, ominous, ominous.
Ominous. Yeah. Oh God, it's this big, hulking, scary building. Ash. Ooh. It's not a beautiful cathedral.
No, this is not Bloodborne. This is... Oh gosh, I wish I could think of something to compare it to off the top of my head.
I waited.
It'll... I do not know, Sazed said slowly, releasing his vision tin mind. It is not easy to say whether or not the fortress is inhabited. There is no motion, there is no light, but perhaps the Inquisitors are hiding inside. No, Marsh said, his stiff voice uncomfortably loud in the evening air. They are gone. Why would they leave? This is a place of great strength, I think. Poor defense against an army, but a great defense against the chaos of the times. Marsh shook his head. They are gone. How are you so certain? I do not know. Where did they go then? Marsh looked at him, then turned and glanced over his shoulder. North. Toward Lucidel? Sazed asked, frowning. Among other things. Come. I do not know if they will return, but we should exploit this opportunity. They're going north. The historic location of the Well of Ascension is in the north.
Ooh. My first thought here is about Marsh. What does he mean? He doesn't know how he knows that they're not they're gone. Is there a sense of his brethren? Tell me how you know. Tell me more about how you don't know, so that we can figure out how you know.
Is it a feeling? Is it like an echolocation type of situation going on with all of the other? You can kind of sense.
Yeah, I that was my main thing. Is man, Inquisitors are weird, and still missing just human Marsh. He is creeping me out, man.
Same. Sazed nodded. This was why they had come after all. Still, a part of him hesitated. He was a man of books and genteel service. Traveling the countryside to visit villages was enough removed from his experience to be discomforting. Infiltrating the Inquisitor stronghold... Marsh obviously didn't care about his companion's inner struggles. The Inquisitor turned and began to walk along the rim of the crater. Note, he thinks the Inquisitor, not his friend,
Marsh.
not
Yeah.
Marsh,
Mhm.
the Inquisitor.
The line right before, Marsh obviously didn't care, but then the rest, the Inquisitor turn. Might be just a stylistic thing, but it also just helps us as the reader go, he's still an Inquisitor. It just keeps it's
True.
you have to put those two together in any case. He is an Inquisitor. You can't just be Marsh did this, Marsh did that. In your mind, you have to be like, Marsh is an Inquisitor now. So I actually like that.
The burden by which the hero shall be known.
Yes, you see? Prophecy. That's another thing. Sorry, just another thing that George R. R. Martin says in that article is about also how prophecy. You can't have prophecy make so much sense. You can't do that. Which I'm sure he said that before.
Yes, I am a bit more familiar with his opinions on prophecy than on magic.
Mm-hmm.
Sazed threw his pack over his shoulder, then followed. They eventually arrived at a cage-like contraption, obviously meant to be lowered down to the bottom by ropes and pulleys. The cage sat locked in place at the top ledge, and Marsh stopped at its side, but did not enter. What? Sazed asked. The pulley system. The cage is meant to be lowered by men holding it from below. Oh my god, I just realized I'm Batman.
You haven't said, I'm Batman. Come on, say it.
I'm the Inquisitor. Sazed nodded, realizing this was true. Marsh stepped forward and threw a lever. The cage fell. Ropes began to smoke and pulleys squealed as the massive cage plummeted toward the chasm floor. A muted crash echoed against the rocks. If there is anyone down there, they now know we're here. Marsh turned toward him, the heads of his eye spikes glistening slightly in the failing sunlight. Follow however you wish. Then he tied off the counter rope and began to climb down the ropes. Sazed stepped up to the platform's edge, watching Marsh shimmy down the dangling rope into the shadowed misty abyss. Then Sazed knelt and opened his pack. He unhooked the large metal bracers around his upper and lower arms, his core copper mines. They contained the memories of a keeper, the stored knowledge of centuries past. He reverently placed them to the side, then pulled a pair of much smaller bracelets, one iron, one pewter from the pack. Metal mines for a warrior. That's cool. I shall don my warrior metals.
My warrior metal mines. My warrior braces. Yeah,
not my doctor metal mines, not my scholar metal mines, my warrior metal mines.
Now I'm thinking of like an anime dress up routine. And then he puts on
Sailor Moon transformation.
Like, yeah, exactly. Where it's like some sort of, and then it's like warrior metal mines. And then anyway.
Did Marsh understand how unskilled Sazed was in this area? Amazing strength did not a warrior make. Regardless, Sazed snapped the two bracelets around his ankles. Next, he pulled out two rings, tin and copper. These he slipped onto his fingers. He closed the pack and threw it over his shoulder, then picked up his core copper mines. He carefully located a good hiding place, a secluded hollow between two boulders, and slid them inside. Whatever happened below, he didn't want to risk them being taken and destroyed by the Inquisitors. Smart, but I hope you remember where those are, and I hope you're not chased out.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm worried about being able to retrieve them. But you know what? As a keeper, he knows best, I suppose. The keepers have kept for this kind of way, so like leaving it hidden, and then he would tell another keeper where to go and find it. But yeah, I also don't think I would have done that. Another thing, just that I was thinking as we are going through this ferrochemy, we've got new powers from new metals, right? For
Malatium.
Yeah, all of that, right?
Yeah.
But we have not tried things out with ferrochemy. What ferrochemy can do.
Ooh.
So I'm just
experiment.
Yeah, like those kinds of experiments and things like that. I would be like, for science, come on, Sazed. Like, because yes, okay, the Lord Ruler was using ferrochemy the way keepers or.
Oh no! But sorry, do you want to be paranoid?
Yes.
What happens if Sazed tries to put something into the Duralumin, and as a result, all of his metal mines for like knowledge
Yes.
and books and religion disappears?
That makes sense. That would make sense. Don't do that. That's like, it's like a quick erase of all. It's a clearing of your metal mines if you use
Yeah,
that. Yeah. Oh my god. It's a
that's
sweep. Oh
that's
no.
really scary.
Yeah. So like, don't fuck around with that.
Okay. Here's what you do. Hopefully, a newer, younger ferrochemist will come around at some point. I'm assuming they ended the non-breeding program, and give him, like, before he starts studying the world's religions, give him like one religion and then try the new metal and make sure it's safe.
But I'm thinking also, look, yeah, you don't want to risk it, but I'm thinking it's unlikely that it would affect metals that are not in contact with the person.
That's
So,
true. That's
so
very true.
you, so you could just have him have like a eyesight metal mind on and see what happens to that one
Right.
when, yeah, see how that they might know how that works. Whether I would say, yeah, the being disconnected from the metal would keep it safe, but we don't know that, so you need to you're right. Use the young and experiment on the youth.
Experiment on the youth.
Sorry.
In order to fill a copper mind with memories, Sazed had listened to another keeper recite his entire collection of histories, facts, and stories. Sazed had memorized each sentence, then shoved those memories into the copper mind for later retrieval. Sazed remembered very little of the actual experience, but he could draw forth any of the books or essays he wished, placing them back into his mind, gaining the ability to recollect them as crisply as when he'd first memorized them. He only had to have the bracers on. Interesting that he doesn't remember learning them exactly, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Remember, part of our first few questions when we became familiar with this, or we first introduced to it, was what happens to your mind? Like, is it the butterfly effect? What happens? Like, so you have to forget things in order to, like, you can't keep all of the knowledge in your mind. It just eventually you have to forget it, but you have to make sure that before you forget it, you put it into the copper mind, and then also, and one of the questions was, if you put it into the copper mind, does that make you forget it, or is it just you need to,
It kind of sounds to me like it makes you forget it.
Immediately? Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I think he describes it. He says it fades, so it does. Eventually, you forget it. But I think with something that intense, like this what he's describing here, it would be kind of instantaneous because it's straight from one to the other and it's highly detailed.
Right. Keep in mind that short-term and long-term memory are a thing. I would imagine it would be imperative to ensure that things are processed through the long term before you put it in the metal mind.
Yeah, that's what he means by memorized. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, being without his copper mines made him anxious. He shook his head, walking back over to the platform. Marsh was moving very quickly down toward the chasm floor. Like all Inquisitors, he had the powers of a Mistborn. It was a mystery to Sazed how he had obtained them, and how he managed to live despite the spikes that had been driven directly through his brain. But Marsh had declined to answer Sazed's questions. Good, I was going to say, ask him, but
yeah, they've had a while as they've traveled together, and look, Marsh gets tired more than Sazed would. So, like, I love how that creeps you out. But yeah, so I'm glad that he did ask questions. Good for science.
Sazed called down, drawing Marsh's attention, then held up his pack and dropped it. Marsh reached out and the pack lurched, pulled by its metals into Marsh's hand. The Inquisitor threw it over his shoulder before continuing his descent. Sazed nodded thankfully, then stepped off the platform. As he began to fall, he mentally reached into his iron mine, searching for the power he had stored therein. Filling a metal mine always had a cost. In order to store up sight, Sazed had been forced to spend weeks with poor eyesight. During that time, he had worn a tin bracelet, stowing away the excess sight for later use. Iron was a bit different from the others. It didn't store up sight, strength, endurance, or even memories. It stored something completely different: Wait. Oh, he is going to cast Featherfall.
Yeah, look at you! Look at you!
This day, Sazed didn't tap the power stored inside the Iron Mind. That would have made him more heavy. Instead, he began to fill the Iron Mind, letting it suck away his weight. He felt a familiar sense of lightness, a sense that his own body wasn't pressing upon itself as forcefully. His fall slowed. The Terrace philosophers had much to say on using an Iron Mind. They explained that the power didn't change a person's bulk or size. Instead, it changed the way that the ground pulled against them. Gravity. I said gravity, not the book. Sazed's fall didn't slow because of his decrease in weight. It slowed because he suddenly had a relatively large amount of surface exposed to the wind of his fall, and a lighter body to go along with it.
Oh my god, I love this. Sorry, I'm really loving the feather fall. Okay? I'm really okay.
And it's great that he gets to, it's storing it instead of taking it out. It's like, hey, it's like 2 magics for the price of 1 in a way.
Yeah, exactly. You get to use this. You can be immovable later on.
Regardless of the scientific reasons, Sazed didn't fall as quickly. The thin metal bracelets on his legs were the heaviest things on his body, and they kept him pointed feet downward. I just had an image of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, okay, yeah.
When they drink the fizzy lifting drinks. At the end of it, when they're slowly coming down. I love it. He held out his arms and bent his body slightly, letting the wind push against him. His descent was not terribly slow, not like that of a leaf or a feather, but he didn't plummet either.
Sorry.
Instead, he fell in a controlled, almost leisurely manner. Clothing flapping, arms outspread, he passed Marsh, who watched with a curious expression. This is going to end up being a very dark chapter, I can tell. We're laughing too hard right now.
Yeah.
It's going to be devastating.
I wish we had like joy metal minds that we can just go and put some joy into it and take it out later. We'll need this. Just try and just breathe in this moment, enjoy the feather fall, enjoy the having called it and all of that, because I'm very scared. And
same.
Just having a bit of a moment. Okay.
As he approached the ground, Sazed tapped his pewter mind, drawing forth a tiny bit of strength to prepare. He hit the ground, but because his body was so light, there was very little shock. He barely even needed to bend his knees to absorb the force of impact. He stopped filling the Iron Mind, released his pewter, and waited quietly for Marsh. Beside him, the carrying cage lay in shambles. Sazed noticed several broken iron shackles with discomfort. Clearly, some of those who had visited the conventicle had not come by choice. By the time Marsh neared the bottom, the mists were thick in the air. Sazed had lived with them all of his life and had never before felt uncomfortable in them. Yet now he half expected the mists to begin choking him, to kill him as they seemed to have done to old Jed, the unfortunate farmer whose death Sazed had investigated. Marsh dropped the last 10 feet or so, landing with an Alamancer's increased agility. Even after spending so much time with Mistborn, Sazed was impressed with Alamancy's gifts. He'd never been jealous of them, not really. True, Alamancy was better in a fight, but it could not expand the mind, giving one access to the dreams, hopes, and beliefs of 1,000 years of culture. It could not give the knowledge to treat a wound or help teach a poor village to use modern fertilization techniques. The metal mines of ferrochemy weren't flamboyant, but they had a far more lasting value to society.
Nerd!
So this section reminds me of a conversation I had in the comments section. I think it was with Serge.
Hi,
Sorry. Hi, Serge.
Or hi.
He was talking about whether or not he would prefer to be a ferrochemist or an Alamancer. So, Kite, I don't think you've been asked. Ferrochemy or Alamancy?
I just really like how cool Mistborning is, man. So I'm gonna Alamance all the way. Shit. That's what I'm gonna do.
If you want to.
Alamance if you want to. Yeah, so I think I would go with that just because I enjoy the Mistborning of it all. I do enjoy the flamboyance of Alamancy. Yeah, we have the internet, okay? So it's fine. I can do the internet part. I'll expand my mind with the internet. Okay? Yeah. Well, and
great answer.
I remember you being asked this question, but I don't remember your answer.
So if I recall correctly, Serge had said ferochemy. I believe I said allomancy, mistborning, ferochemy, then allomancy, because I want to be able to fly.
Yeah,
And
that is the main thing, yeah.
yeah, and technically it's not flying, it's controlled jumping, but it's flying.
Yeah, okay, it's flying. It's basically flying. I think, considering my enjoyment of the insect glaive in Monster Hunter, I would really enjoy that kind of. You do sense it feels like you're flying if you jump as much. So yes, let's go.
The metal mines of ferochemy weren't flamboyant, but they had a far more lasting value to society. Besides, Sazed knew a few tricks with ferochemy that were bound to surprise even the most prepared warrior. Marsh handed him the pack. Come. Sazed nodded, shouldering the pack and following the Inquisitor across the rocky ground. Walking next to Marsh was odd, for Sazed wasn't accustomed to being around people who were as tall as he was. Terracemen were tall by nature, and Sazed even more so. His arms and legs were a bit too long for his body, a medical condition brought on by having been castrated as a very young boy. Interesting, because I remember us talking about whether or not, as described in the first book, all Terracemen were abnormally tall or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's interesting.
So wait,
Say
like
that.
just the takeaway from here is even for a terraceman, Salzit is tall.
So
Like
it would
even
seem.
so he's extra tall.
Cool. Though the Lord Ruler was dead, Terrace culture would long feel the effects of his stewardship and breeding programs, the methods by which he had tried to eliminate ferochemical powers from the Terrace people. The conventicle of Saren loomed in the darkness, looking even more ominous now that Sazed stood within the crater. Marsh strode right up to the front doors, and Sazed followed behind. He wasn't afraid. Not really. Fear had never been a strong motivator in Sazed's life, but he did worry. There were so few keepers left. If he died, that was one fewer person who could travel, restoring lost truths and teaching the people. Not that I'm doing such at the moment anyway.
He's still struggling with being part of an adventure and taking way more action than a usual keeper versus doing his duty.
Yeah. And I like he's never really afraid, but he worries. That's very
That's
neat character stuff.
yeah, that seems true to me. I do just get worry from Sazed all the time. If there's any bit of neuroticism, it's actually just worry, which is different to fear. So I like that distinction.
Marsh regarded the massive steel doors, then he threw his weight against one, obviously burning pewter to enhance his strength. Sazed joined him, pushing hard. The door did not budge. Regretting the expenditure of power, Sazed reached into his pewter mind and tapped strength. He used far more than he had when landing, and his muscles immediately increased in size. Unlike allomancy, ferochemy often had direct effects on a person's body. Beneath his robes, Sazed gained the bulk and build of a lifetime warrior, easily becoming twice as strong as he had been a moment earlier. With their combined effort, the two of them managed to push the door open. It did not creak. It slid, slowly but evenly inward, exposing a long, dark hallway. Sazed released his pewter mind, reverting to his normal self. Marsh strode into the conventicle, his feet kicking up the mist that had begun to pour through the open doorway. Marsh? Sazed asked. The Inquisitor turned. I won't be able to see inside there. Your ferochemy. Sazed shook his head. It can let me see better in darkness, but only if there's some light to begin with. In addition, tapping that much sight would drain my tin mind in a matter of minutes. I'll need a lantern. So, is your impression here that the place is always purposefully kept pitch black, presumably because they cannot see? The Inquisitors, I mean?
Well, yeah, they cannot. They can see in a different way. They don't
Right.
need lights.
Infrared.
Yeah.
Or infrablue.
That's my
Inframetal.
Yeah, I'm trying to be creative, but I'm enjoying your creativity. Let's do that.
But is that your takeaway from this?
Yeah. Like I don't feel like they've turned the lights off and gone off. Also, the
Right.
door, the way the doors work, That was interesting. That they are just heavy doors. It's not that
Yeah.
they're locked.
Although, is this a place for obligators as well as inquisitors, or is this a place only for inquisitors?
I thought it would be for both.
Then having it be perfectly pitch black would not be
Doesn't matter.
practical.
Yeah.
Unless obligators had to carry around lanterns.
Let's see. Let's see how available such things are.
Yeah. Marsh nodded. He turned into the darkness, quickly disappearing from Sazed's view. So, inquisitors don't need light to see. It was to be expected. The spikes filled Marsh's entire sockets, completely destroying the eyeballs. Whatever strange power allowed inquisitors to see, it apparently worked as well in pure darkness as it did in daylight. Good, observant Sazed. Marsh returned a few moments later, carrying a lamp. From the chains Sazed had seen on the descent cage, Sazed suspected that the inquisitors had kept a sizable group of slaves and servants to attend their needs. If that was the case, where had the people gone? Had they fled? Sazed lit the lamp with a flint from his pack. The lamp's ghostly light illuminated a stark, daunting hallway. He stepped into the conventicle, holding the lamp high, and began to fill the small copper ring on his finger, the process transforming it into a copper mind. Large rooms, without adornment. He didn't really need to say the words, but he'd found that speaking helped him form distinct memories. He could then place them into the copper mind. The inquisitors obviously had a fondness for steel. This is not surprising, considering that their religion was often referred to as the Steel Ministry. The walls are hung with massive steel plates that bear no rust, unlike the ones outside. Many of those here are not completely smooth, but instead crafted with some interesting patterns etched into their surfaces. Oh, this is so cool, Sazed. This is Sazed prepping to memorize and create Metal Mind and be a keeper. This is Keeper Sazed in action.
It's like he's dictating. He's dictating, and he's saying it's making him form memories, and he is making the copper mind right now. So I'm coming back to the idea that the memory will fade naturally, but this right now, what he's doing will be fresh in the copper mind.
Yes, and then he can dictate it as he's.
Yeah, he says he steps because he goes. The process transforming it into a copper mind, and then he didn't really need to say the words, but he found that speaking helped him form distinct memories. So that's what he's making a distinct memory, and at the same time it's going into the copper mind. So that's making me feel like eventually he can forget this, or forget exactly his description, and then it will be in the copper mind. So he doesn't have to instantly forget what he's doing. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to make a distinction that you don't forget it by putting it into the copper mind.
Right. Well, also, like, you're not going to forget what you're literally currently looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Let's see.
Marsh frowned, turning toward him. What are you doing? Sazed held up his right hand, showing the copper ring. I must make an account of this visit. I will need to repeat this experience back to other keepers when the opportunity presents itself. There is much to be learned from this place, I think. Marsh turned away. You should not care about the Inquisitors. They are not worthy of your record. It isn't a matter of worthiness, Marsh, Sazed said, raising his lamp to study a square pillar. Knowledge of all religions is valuable. I must make certain these things persist. I'm really glad Marsh said that, by the way, because it lets us know that he's still in there.
He's still in there, yes. I was about to say, because he says the Inquisitors, doesn't say us, because we were worried about that earlier when we first, because there is some sort of change in Marsh, and we're just like, because remember,
still that dislike.
Yeah, Sazed was like, brethren. It's like, well, this counteracts the use of the word brethren. It's like, there's still dislike for the Inquisitors, like you said.
Yeah.
But also, I love that Sazed was so like, oh, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do as a keeper. He was a bit critical of himself in his thoughts earlier on. And now look at him. His immediate instinct is to make a record of this. So he's a keeper through and through. And he is doing his duty by doing this.
He keeps on keepering.
He keeps on keepering. But really, he's doing his, and that also he's has this, oh, knowledge is very important and whatever. Look, Sazed, how do you get knowledge? By moving around, not by just staying in one place. So I know
but
that
it is not time to record anymore.
Hey,
Okay?
oh,
It is time
okay.
to share the knowledge.
But there's so much investigation to be had, Sazed.
True.
Yeah. Now, get scanning, boy.
Sazed regarded the pillar for a moment, then closed his eyes and formed an image
Hold
of
up,
it
hold up, hold
inside
up,
his
hold up,
head.
hold up. Sorry.
What?
One more thing. We're talking about etched in steel, things etched in steel. Is there something? Is this where we find the message? Or is there a place like this that
No.
has Quan stuff in it? Because that's what I'm wondering.
Would the Steel Ministry and the Inquisitors require Quan's writings?
They wouldn't require them. Maybe they would acquire them. I'm just saying, well, either way, the same method has been used.
If Quan's writings heavily state that Alendi was not the hero of ages, then the Lord Ruler, then Rashek has a very strong argument to say, hey, Alendi wasn't the hero of ages.
Mm-hmm. It was
I
me.
was. Yeah. So that's
also
like that's a strong point for Rashek's legitimacy.
But then think about it. Did Rashek? We don't know. It was long ago. We don't know if Rashek
knew Quan and
or also if he wanted people to believe, well, people would know that he is not Alendi. He literally is not the way he looks. That's not the way people would know. Right. Like, say they both went into the cavern and then they came out. Like, he came out, they would know it's Rashek, not Alendi. But he became the Lord Ruler, so it doesn't matter.
But then again, we were also asking ourselves, why did Rashek keep the journal? And as you have said, you know, there was irony in the fact that he's so concerned about how he'll be remembered, the journal man, and journal man wasn't remembered at all. The name was forgotten. So there's shenanigans afoot.
There's so much. There is so much. I love how rich it is.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like we're just on the verge of something. Sazed regarded the pillar for a moment, then closed his eyes and formed an image of it inside his head, which he added to the copper mind. Visual memories were less useful than spoken words. Visualizations faded very quickly once taken out of a copper mind, suffering from the mind's distortion. Plus, they could not be passed to other keepers. Marsh didn't respond to Sazed's comment about religion. He merely turned and walked deeper into the building. Sazed followed at a slower pace, speaking to himself, recording the words in his copper mind. It was an interesting experience. As soon as he spoke, he felt the thoughts sucked from his mind, leaving behind a blank hollowness.
Oh, so it does. Sorry.
Yeah.
It does kind of. He does forget it as soon as he puts it in the copper mind.
He had difficulty remembering the specifics of what he had just been saying, but once he was done filling his copper mind, he would be able to tap those memories later and know them with crisp clarity. The room is tall. There are a few pillars, and they are also wrapped in steel. They are blocky and square, rather than round. I get the sense that this place was created by a people who cared little for subtlety. They ignored small details in favor of broad lines and utilitarianism. As we move beyond the main entryway, this architectural theme continues. There are no paintings on the walls, nor are there wooden adornments or tile floors. Instead, there are only the long, broad hallways with their harsh lines and reflective surfaces. The floor is constructed of steel squares, each a few feet across. They are cold to the touch. It is strange not to see the tapestries, stained glass windows, and sculpted stones that are so common in Lucidel's architecture. There are no spires or vaultings here, only squares and rectangles, lines, so many lines. Nothing here is soft, no carpet, no rugs, no windows. It is a place for people who see the world differently from ordinary men. Marsh walked straight down this massive hallway as if oblivious to its decor. I will follow him, then come back to record more later. He seems to be following something Something I cannot sense. Perhaps it is... Sazed trailed off as he stepped around a bend and saw Marsh standing in the doorway of a large chamber. Quick note, I'm so glad that the architecture is built around the eyesight. That is such great world building.
Yeah, that is that, and it's look, we didn't it's nice the way that he's using Sazed recording to do that world building.
That as well,
yeah.
yes.
It's neat, very tight.
Really well done.
Mm.
The lamplight flickered unevenly as Sazed's arm quivered. Marsh had found the servants. They had been dead long enough that Sazed hadn't noticed the scent until he had come close. Perhaps that was what Marsh had been following. The senses of a man burning tin could be quite acute. The Inquisitors had done their work thoroughly. These were the remnants of a slaughter. The room was large, but had only one exit, and the bodies were piled high near the back, killed by what looked like harsh sword or axe strokes. The servants had huddled up against the back wall as they died. Sazed turned away. Marsh remained in the doorway. "There is a bad air about this place," he finally said. "You have only now noticed that?" Marsh turned, glancing at him, demanding his gaze. "We should not spend much time here. There are stairs at the end of the hallway behind us. I will go up. That is where the Inquisitor's quarters will be. If the information I seek is here, I will find it there. You may stay, or you may descend, but do not follow me." Why? Why? And this is where the chapter gets really dark.
I know, it's already. It's like, look, we've got these bodies, this gruesome, horrific scene. Yeah, I'm scared. What the thing we were scared about? It's arriving.
And why can't Sazed follow?
Yeah, well, that's so. I want to follow him now.
Yeah. Sazed frowned. Why? I must be alone here. I cannot explain it. I do not care if you witness Inquisitor atrocities. I just do not wish to be with you when you do. Sazed lowered his lamp, turning its light away from the horrific scene. Very well. Marsh turned, brushing past Sazed and disappearing into the dark hallway. And Sazed was alone. He tried not to think about that very much. He returned to the main hallway, describing the slaughter to his coppermind, before giving a more detailed explanation of the architecture and the art, if indeed that was what the different patterns on the wall plates could be called. As he worked, his voice echoing quietly against the rigid architecture, his lamp, a weak drop of light reflected in steel. His eyes were drawn toward the back of the hallway. There was a pool of darkness there, a stairwell leading down. Also, don't split the party!
Mm-hmm. I just want to ask, do you think that's a good enough reason from Marsh that's just like, I don't want to be with you when you see these atrocities? And it's like, are you going to commit some atrocity?
Well, it could be, I'm one of them now. I feel shame and don't want to be around when you witness it. Or there's something that he's feeling. There's something supernatural going on with him that is telling him, maybe it's whispers, maybe he's hearing whispers, guiding him or something.
Yeah, but that's a good enough reason to split the party. That's the thing. But I guess Sazed's just like, fine, I'll comply. Let's not argue about it. And I guess, I'm scared. I'm it's an Inquisitor's a nice guy to have around. It's like, it's great, actually. Well, your own one, obviously. I'm scared. Do we have to continue? Oh.
Nope, let's pack it up. See you folks next time. Subscribe to That Don't Kitty. As he worked, his voice echoing quietly against the rigid architecture, his lamp a weak drop of light reflected in steel, his eyes were drawn toward the back of the hallway. There was a pool of darkness there, a stairwell leading down. Even as he turned back to his description of one of the wall mounts, he knew that he would eventually find himself walking toward that darkness. It was the same as ever, the curiosity, the need to understand the unknown. This sense had driven him as a keeper, had led him to Kelsier's company. His search for truths could never be completed, but neither could it be ignored. So he eventually turned and approached the stairwell, his own whispering voice his only companion. The stairs are akin to what I saw in the hallway. They are broad and expansive, like the steps leading up to a temple or palace, except these go down into darkness. They are large, likely cut from stone and then lined with steel. They are tall, meant for a determined stride. As I walk, I wonder what secrets the Inquisitors deemed worthy of hiding below the earth, in the basement of their stronghold. This entire building is a secret. What did they do here, in these massive hallways and open, empty rooms? The stairwell ends in another large square room. I've noticed something. There are no doors in the doorways here. Each room is open, visible to those outside. As I walk, peeking into the rooms beneath the earth, I find cavernous chambers with few furnishings, no libraries, no lounges. Several contain large metal blocks that could be altars. There is something different here in this last room at the back of the main landing. I'm not certain what to make of it. A torture chamber, perhaps? There are tables, metal tables set into the floor. They are bloody, so there are no corpses. Blood flakes and powders at my feet. A lot of men have died in this room, I think. There don't appear to be torture implements beyond spikes, like the ones in Inquisitor's eyes. Ooh, is this where they make the Inquisitors?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking before you got to the spikes. So
Yeah,
I think this is it.
same.
And yes, when you become an Inquisitor, there's something you basically die. You're a zombie. You're weird.
Yeah. Spikes, like the ones in Inquisitor eyes. Massive, heavy things, like the spikes one might pound into the ground with a very large mallet. Some are tipped with blood, so I don't think I'll handle those. These other ones, yes, they look indistinguishable from the ones in Marsh's eyes, yet some are of different metals.
Ooh.
So we know that there is one spike in an Inquisitor per each of the allomantic metals that we were aware of in the first book, correct?
Okay, yeah. I didn't know.
So
I didn't put that together. Yes.
I think that's what we... Was that just us theorizing, or was that in the book? I genuinely don't remember right now.
I don't remember that being a thing.
Okay, it might have just been us
theorizing. No, I think Marsh does say it, one for each of he does say that actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What if...
I just forgot.
Because I keep thinking those are very hard to replace. What if there's a very low chance of success rate with creating Inquisitors? Like, you are more likely than not to kill the person than
exactly.
for it. Yeah.
I think so. I think that's probably how it works. That's why so many people have died there. It's not that easy, but you do try, and if you survive, you'll end up being that. That's it. Works. But most of the time, you would, if they were that easy to replace.
Yeah, and theoretically, the people you're trying to turn into Inquisitors are, generally speaking, pro-Inquisitor. So it's not like you're needlessly killing Ska. Like, these are, if you're coming at it from the Lord Ruler's perspective and the Inquisitor's perspective, you are potentially killing your allies in the hopes that, well, I have no doubt we'll learn more about it soon.
But you have to, what you're saying as well is you have to choose wisely. You can't just say, like, every mystic she needs to now go and try and become an Inquisitor. Like, you have to be chosen. You have to have the rights.
We're getting Dr. Frankenstein in here as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sazed set the spike down on a table, metal clinking against metal. He shivered, scanning the room again. A place to make new Inquisitors, perhaps? He had a sudden horrific vision of the creatures, once only several dozen in number, having swelled their ranks during their months sequestered in the conventicle. Having swelled their ranks?
He imagined it.
Yes. Okay, that's what. Okay. Phew. I'm right there with you, Sazed. But that didn't seem right. They were a secretive, exclusive bunch. Where would they have found enough men worthy of joining their ranks? Why not make Inquisitors from the servants above, rather than simply killing them? Sazed had always suspected that a man had to be an Allomancer to be changed into an Inquisitor. Marsh's own experience substantiated that premise. He had been a seeker, able to burn bronze before his transformation. Sazed looked again at the blood, the spikes, and the tables, and decided he wasn't certain that he wanted to know how one made a new Inquisitor.
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does.
He
Funny, that
is
was...
curiosity. Yeah.
Yeah. Sazed was about to leave the room when his lamp revealed something at the back. Another doorway. He moved forward, trying to ignore the dried blood at his feet, and entered a chamber that didn't seem to match the rest of the conventicle's daunting architecture. It was cut directly into the stone, and it twisted down into a very small stairwell. Curious, Sazed walked down the set of worn stone steps. For the first time since entering the building, he felt cramped, and he had to stoop as he reached the bottom of the stairwell and entered a small chamber. He stood up straight and held up his lamp to reveal a wall. The room ended abruptly, and his light sparkled off the wall. It held a steel plate like those above. This one was a good 5 feet across and nearly as tall, and it bore writing. Suddenly interested, "Oh, are we right?"
Yes! I called something! I saw a little glimpse. Yeah.
Well done. A wall. The room ended abruptly, and his light sparkled off the wall. It held a steel plate like those above. This one was a good 5 feet across and nearly as tall, and it bore writing. Suddenly interested, Sazed set down his pack and stepped forward, raising his lamp to read the top words on the wall. The text was in Terrace. It was an old dialect, certainly, but one that Sazed could make out even without his language coppermind. His hand trembled as he read the words. "I write these words in steel, for anything not set in metal cannot be trusted." Oh!
Yeah! I'm just so excited that I at least got one.
Wow. And, I mean, well done. Wow.
Yeah. Okay, what does it mean?
And
what does this mean? Because you had the theories of why this wouldn't be there.
But no, it means that some of the suppositions that we were like on the verge of making, Quan being the one to have discovered Alendi and then determined that he's not the hero of ages, grants the Lord Ruler legitimacy for his decision to kill Alendi and take the power for himself and essentially try to be the hero.
Yep. Does. And just sorry, this is that was our first prediction in prediction log, was mural, something written in steel was at the Well of Ascension. So now we have been proven wrong. Our first one prediction has been yeeted.
Do we get half a point? Don't delete it. Like,
I'm not deleting it. I changed the color of it.
Cool. But do we get half a point for considering it essentially a mural of some kind that will be read?
Yes, like on a wall. What we said was like it's going to be on a wall or something. It's not like a tablet or I think we do. Look, I love it. We don't have to be right. We just have to enjoy the journey.
The revelation.
Yeah.
I have begun to wonder if I'm the only sane man left. Can the others not see? They have been waiting so long for their hero to come, the one spoken of in Terra's prophecies, that they quickly jump to conclusions, presuming that each story and legend applies to this one man. My brethren ignore the rest of the facts. They cannot connect the other strange things that are happening. They are deaf to my objections and blind to my discoveries. Perhaps they are right. Perhaps I am mad or jealous or simply daft. My name is Quan, philosopher, scholar, traitor. I am the one who discovered Alendi, and I am the one who first proclaimed him to be the hero of ages. I am the one who started all this, and I am the one who betrayed him, for I now know that he must never be allowed to complete his quest. So does that mean that they are in order as well?
Yes, that's another thing because that was one of our predictions. Okay, so that's let's just check it out.
I think the jury's still out on that.
Yeah, it might be because these are later. That's just they're from the same thing, but I would not put it past Sanderson to mess with them about the way he did the other epilogue.
Yeah.
Epigraphs.
I'll do the page-to-page comparison later.
Yeah.
I also want to say I really like that we're getting this dynamic again, but earlier and like slightly tweaked. I'm really enjoying that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. The fact that we enjoyed the dynamic anyway with the epigraphs, sorry, but the fact that we have a bit more of the reveal earlier makes it still novel. I think that's a good way of continuing it. It's like, it's not that we have to wait. It's not the same pattern of waiting until the end of the book or something. It's, here it is. There's more to be had. He's tantalized us with a lot of different text. We know this is the text, but we want Sazed to read on. And now he can't at the moment because he's being interrupted.
Yep. We get a jump scare. Sazed! He jumped, nearly dropping the lamp. Marsh stood in the doorway behind him, imperious, discomforting, and so dark. He fit this place with its lines and hardness. The upstairs quarters are empty. This trip has been a waste. My brethren took anything of use with them. Not a waste, Marsh, Sazed said, turning back to the plate of text. He hadn't read all of it. He hadn't even gotten close. The script was written in a tight, cramped hand, its etchings coating the wall. The steel had preserved the words despite their obvious age. Sazed's heart beat a little faster.
Same.
Yeah.
I really just want Sazed to read the whole thing, record the whole thing. I want this to happen now. No walking away, Marsh. Like, just please, we need this.
Yes. Write it down if you can. Do you have paper on you?
Yeah.
The steel had preserved the words despite their obvious age. Sazed's heart beat a little faster. This was a fragment of text from before the Lord Ruler's reign. A fragment written by a Terrace philosopher, a holy man. Despite 10 centuries of searching, the Keepers had never fulfilled the original goal of their creation. They had never discovered their own Terrace religion. The Lord Ruler himself of Terrace had quashed their religious teachings soon after his rise to power. His persecution of his own people had been the most complete of his long reign, and the Keepers had never found more than vague fragments regarding what their people had once believed. I have to copy this down, Marsh, Sazed said, reaching for his pack. Taking a visual memory wouldn't work. No man could stare at a wall of so much text, then remember the words. He could perhaps read them into his copper mind, but he wanted a physical record, one that perfectly preserved the structure of lines and punctuation. Good. Smart, Sazed. Good. Marsh shook his head. We will not stay here. I do not think we should even have come.
Shut
Sazed
up, Marsh!
Yeah!
Okay?
This is so valuable.
This is so important. They've been searching for these for fragments like this. It's not just interesting for us. It's literally the existence of Keepers is about this. Please fight him. I mean, argue with him on this. Don't just say come back later. Yeah.
So help me, Quan, if you didn't write down the prophecy itself, I hope you at least wrote down enough for us to glean what the prophecy said.
Mm-hmm.
Please. And then I am so ready for everyone to think that it's Vin, only for it to actually be someone else. By the way, I don't remember if I had this thought this week or last week and forgot to mention it. Put in the prediction log, I do not think Vin is the hero of ages.
Okay. Hold on. Sorry, got to plug in the keyboard. So I agree with you because it's too obvious now.
Yeah.
It's too obvious for us to believe that she is because we wanted to. We've been for a long time saying, okay, it's Vin. She's special. She's all of this.
Yes.
But I think it's still going to be a question. It's not like we've decided. This is just a prediction.
Yeah. It feels like the expectation now. And if there's one thing Brandon Sanderson seems to like to do is throw in a little flair, a little twist to what we think can be done. So.
And it works so well. We could be like, oh, and remember one of the things that you've said and what we've as one of our predictions is that the journey of these past characters parallels the journey of current ones. So that would also work with everyone, including us, going, yay, Vin is the hero of ages, and then it changes. So that would work. That would be very beautiful, the symmetry.
We will not stay here. I do not think we should even have come. Sazed considered, looking up. Then he pulled several large sheets of paper from his pack. Very well, then. I'll take a rubbing. That will be better anyway, I think. It will let me see the text exactly as it was written. No, but take the time. No one's there right now as far as you know. Go over. It's fine. Okay, take the rubbing. Just make sure you do a good job of it.
Yeah, make sure it's all very clear.
Yes. Marsh nodded and Sazed got out his charcoal. This discovery, he thought with excitement. This will be like Rashek's logbook. We are getting close.
Right? I'm excited too.
Me too. Even as he began the rubbing, his hands moving carefully and precisely, another thought occurred to him. With a text like this in his possession, his sense of duty would no longer let him wander the villages. He had to return to the north to share what he had found, lest he die and this text be lost. He had to go to Terrace, or to Luthadel. From there he could send messages north. He had a valid excuse to get back to the center of action, to see the other crew members again. Why did that make him feel even more guilty? Oh, that line. Wow.
He's got duty is there's a lot of duty, okay?
Are you going to trust the other keepers, though, to do that? I mean, I guess
also,
why not, but...
Sorry, I have to say, death is lighter than a feather, duty heavier than a mountain. I have to say that, sorry.
Is that a Wheel of Time thing?
Yeah.
Cool.
Wow!
Oh, what a revelatory chapter.
Very
Thanks
exciting.
for recommending it.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Are you reeling? Usually what happens is Dorkus, because he's focusing on his performance a lot. I'm along for the ride, especially when there's no female lines. So yay, I got to enjoy just being read to this whole chapter.
I mean, calling this a performance seems like a little bit of a stretch. I don't like.
Okay, what would you like to call it? Because to me it is
just a reading.
Okay, fine. He focuses on his reading when a lot, and I get to this recording. I got to just sit back and listen. So I'm very excited. Dorkus will take a little bit to process this.
Yeah, I like to sit with things and think about them for a while, which you may have noticed from previous blind reads where I come in the following week with this thought and that thought.
Yeah. So look out for that next week.
Go and subscribe to that darn Kitty if you haven't. She's got a wonderful channel where she does diagram streams and panel shows and other things. And it sounds like, well, by the time this episode airs, she'll be doing a bunch of other stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
And subscribe. You've listened this long. You know you want to subscribe. Also, leave a like. Why not? And of course, the comment section is open, so enjoy that. Just spoilers, none of those. But have it.
Join the Discord.
Yes, join the Discord for more discussions. There's a special place for you to go and discuss spoilers beyond our eyes. So.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Have a great week, everyone. Good things, boy.
Dorkus and I. Oh, sorry. Wait, it is the right one. Sorry. Dorkus and I are both going into this story. Why Chinsia making his life difficult? Okay.